Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be looking just really briefly at just a couple of verses. I'm actually going to have you be helping me prepare for a message that I get to share tomorrow. So join with us as we look at who's responsible for creation. So in our story, Paul is writing to the Colossians. And they've got a problem because they've got these guys coming in saying, hey, you need to go to God through angels. They're not real clear on Jesus and where he stands. And so in this first chapter of Colossians, he begins to teach about Jesus. And here's our story from God's Word. And for by Jesus all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through Jesus and for Jesus. And he is before all things, and in Jesus all things hold together. And so there's our story from God's Word. Just a couple of verses there. So by Jesus, all things are created. Wow. I wonder, what might that teach us? I mean, what might that teach us about Jesus as far as his power? I mean, and we're used to the Gospels, Jesus, right? Where he does some miracles, and they're pretty impressive, right? Water into wine, raising people from the dead, healing people with all kind of diseases, growing limbs where there were no limbs, casting out demons, all those things. But it says in this many times it says all things, all things, all things, all things. So when it says all things were created by Jesus, and what does that tell us? What might that tell us about Jesus? Well, what might we learn about his authority if all things were created by Jesus? Yeah, it's like there's, and again, thinking of the writer, he's writing to some people who are struggling with, we need to go through angels. There's different ways to get to God. And here, all things. I mean, what do we learn about angelic beings or earthly authorities or governments or rulers or, when it says all things, and then it specifically says in heaven and on earth. Where else does that leave, right? So, I mean, what does that do to our image of Jesus? Kind of expands it a little bit, doesn't it? It says not only though were things created by him and through his power, there's a little expression here. It says all things were created for him. Wow. And again, I get back to the question, so if all things are created for Jesus, does that give us any clue as to his authority over all things? I mean, if he created it and created it for himself, does that give him the authority to say how something is used? Or and then it says, and in Jesus all things are held together. So not only did he create, but according to these verses, he sustains. So Man, what might that teach us about Jesus and about the Trinity as far as their outworking and their personality? Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I see there is he didn't just create and then split, take off. Use my '60s vernacular there, but rather he created for purpose, and then he's still involved in the day-to-day operation of his creation. Wow, so what I see there is he's not just God, he's not just a God, but he's a personal God. A personal God who demonstrates his love not only by creating us, but sticking around, having a relationship with us. Man. So I wonder, in the story we see he's responsible for all things, and all things were created for him. And we talked just a little bit about things created for him. He has a say. So today, does he still have authority over people's lives? I mean, what might that look like? In general, I'm thinking, wow, who gets to be the one that decides morality? Who's it okay for people to sleep with? Who's it, what behaviors is okay? What behaviors are not okay? So, I'm just curious, in your life, have you made Jesus the authority over your life, or is culture your authority? Yeah, it's kind of hard for us to, excuse me, not be under the influence of culture in many ways, right? I mean, it is the water in which we swim. But I wonder, in my life, how should I examine my life and compare Jesus' purposes in his creation to how I'm allowing those purposes to be played out? Just a thought. Well, these verses are from Colossians 1, verses 16 and 17. And I would love to see some of your comments here about, it says all things were created through him. That's not popular today. We're going to be talking about this in a sermon on Sunday at Commonwealth City. And so I'd love to see your comments, your questions. And if you've not subscribed to the channel yet, I sure would appreciate it. So until the next time, keep on telling those Bible stories.